Ladies and gentlemen, the idea that the more you know, the less you understand is a paradox that challenges the very foundation of human knowledge. At first glance, it seems counterintuitive. After all, isn't knowledge supposed to bring clarity? Yet, as people dive deeper into any subject, they often find that answers lead to more questions, and what once seemed simple becomes complex and elusive. This paradox exists across all fields of study, from philosophy to science, and even in our personal understanding of life itself. Consider a person who starts learning about the universe. At an elementary level, they might believe the night sky is simply filled with stars, planets, and perhaps a few distant galaxies. But as they study astronomy, they begin to realize the universe is far more complex than they imagined. They learn about black holes, dark matter, and quantum mechanics, all of which introduce new uncertainties. The vastness of space and the mysterious forces that govern it reveal that human understanding is just scratching the surface. The more they learn, the more they realize how much they don't know. This phenomenon is not limited to science. In philosophy, the greatest thinkers throughout history have attempted to define concepts like truth, morality, and existence. Yet the deeper one delves into philosophical thought, the more ambiguous these ideas become. A simple notion like right and wrong might seem clear at first, but deeper analysis reveals cultural, situational, and psychological factors that complicate any absolute definition. What seemed obvious in childhood becomes a web of perspectives and contradictions, leading to the realization that true understanding is elusive. Even in everyday life, this paradox is present. A young person might have strong opinions about relationships, success, or happiness. They might believe love is simple, hard work always leads to success, or happiness is about achieving goals. But as they gain experience, these beliefs are challenged. They see relationships fail despite deep love, witness hard-working individuals struggle while others succeed with luck, and realize happiness is fleeting even after achieving milestones. With each new lesson, certainty is replaced with nuance, and the simplicity they once believed in dissolves into a more complicated reality. This paradox can be unsettling because it confronts the human desire for certainty. People naturally seek closure and definite answers, yet the pursuit of knowledge often delivers the opposite. The more someone learns, the more they are forced to accept ambiguity. However, this is not necessarily a negative thing. In fact, embracing the paradox can lead to intellectual humility, a deeper appreciation for learning, and a willingness to entertain multiple perspectives. Instead of seeking absolute answers, those who understand this paradox accept that knowledge is an ever-expanding landscape with no final destination. Many of history's greatest minds have recognized this truth. Socrates famously stated, "I know that I know nothing," acknowledging that wisdom comes from recognizing one's own ignorance. Albert Einstein, despite his groundbreaking discoveries, often emphasized how little humanity truly understands about the universe. These figures understood that knowledge is like an expanding horizon. Every step forward only reveals a greater expanse beyond. Ultimately, the paradox of knowledge is not a reason for despair, but an invitation to curiosity. It reminds us that learning is not about reaching a final point of understanding, but about continuously exploring, questioning, and evolving. Rather than seeing uncertainty as a flaw, it can be viewed as the natural state of an ever-growing mind. The more someone knows, the more they realize how interconnected, mysterious, and infinite the world truly is. This paradox may never be resolved, but perhaps the purpose of knowledge is not to reach the end of understanding, but to appreciate the beauty of the journey itself. The idea that the pursuit of happiness can make you unhappy is one of the most frustrating paradoxes of life. People naturally seek happiness, believing that if they work hard enough, plan well, and make the right choices, they will eventually reach a state of lasting joy. However, the very act of obsessively chasing happiness can create stress, frustration, and disappointment. The more someone fixates on being happy, the more they notice when they are not, which leads to a cycle of dissatisfaction and self-doubt. One of the reasons this happens is that happiness is not a permanent destination, but a fleeting experience. People often set specific goals, believing that once they achieve them, they will feel truly happy. They think, once I get this job, I'll be happy, or once I find the right person, I'll be happy. But when they reach these milestones, the feeling of happiness is often temporary. The mind quickly adapts, setting new goals and raising expectations. This phenomenon, known as the hedonic treadmill, explains why people constantly seek more, yet never feel permanently satisfied. Social pressure also plays a huge role in this paradox. Modern society constantly promotes the idea that happiness is a measurable achievement. Social media bombards people with images of others appearing to live perfect, joyful lives, traveling to exotic places, having seemingly flawless relationships, and enjoying every moment. This creates an illusion that everyone else is happy all the time, making those who are struggling feel even worse. The pressure to be happy can make people feel like failures when they experience sadness, stress, or uncertainty. Ironically, the belief that happiness should be constant can make normal emotional ups and downs feel like personal shortcomings. Another issue is that focusing too much on happiness can make people avoid discomfort and difficult emotions, which are necessary for personal growth. Many of life's most meaningful experiences involve struggle, sacrifice, and even pain. Building strong relationships requires dealing with conflicts. Achieving meaningful goals involves setbacks and frustrations. Avoiding negative emotions in the name of happiness can make people feel empty because they miss out on the full range of human experience. Sometimes the pursuit of meaning, rather than direct happiness, leads to a deeper and more lasting sense of fulfillment. Psychologists have also found that people who prioritize happiness too much can become overly self-focused. Instead of living in the moment or appreciating what they have, they constantly analyze their own emotional state, asking, "Am I happy enough?" This overanalysis can make even enjoyable experiences feel forced or disappointing. When happiness becomes a checklist item rather than a natural feeling, it loses its authenticity. The paradox also exists in the way happiness often comes from unexpected places. Some of the happiest moments in life are spontaneous and unplanned. Laughing with a friend, experiencing a beautiful sunset, or getting lost in a passion or hobby. These moments happen when people are fully engaged in life, not when they are actively trying to be happy. In contrast, when someone constantly chases happiness, they may miss these simple, genuine experiences because they are too focused on whether they are happy enough. Letting go of the need to always be happy can ironically lead to greater contentment. When people accept that happiness comes and goes, they can appreciate it more when it arrives and not panic when it fades. Instead of chasing an idealized version of happiness, they can focus on living fully, embracing both the joys and struggles of life. True happiness is often found in the process of living rather than in the pursuit of a perfect emotional state. Freedom is often seen as the ability to do whatever one wants, whenever they want, without restrictions. It is associated with independence, spontaneity, and the absence of constraints. However, the paradox is that true freedom is not about living without rules or discipline. Without discipline, freedom quickly turns into chaos, and instead of gaining independence, people become prisoners of their impulses, habits, and circumstances. One of the clearest examples of this paradox is in personal finance. Many people believe that financial freedom means being able to spend money however they like, indulging in whatever they desire without limitation. However, without financial discipline, saving, budgeting, and making wise investments, this kind of freedom is short-lived. Those who spend recklessly may feel free in the moment, but eventually, they become trapped by debt, financial stress, and a lack of options. On the other hand, those who exercise discipline, delaying gratification and managing their finances wisely, eventually gain the kind of freedom that allows them to make choices without being restricted by financial hardship. This principle applies to health as well. People who lack discipline in their diet, exercise, and sleep may enjoy short-term pleasures, but over time, their bodies become weaker, their energy levels drop, and they lose the ability to do the things they love. They may want to travel, engage in activities, or simply feel good in their own skin, but without discipline, they find themselves limited by poor health and fatigue. In contrast, those who maintain a disciplined approach to their well-being, eating healthily, exercising regularly, and prioritizing rest, gain the freedom to move, explore, and live life fully for years to come. The ability to enjoy life without physical limitations is a direct result of the discipline required to maintain one's health. The paradox extends to time management. People often think that having complete freedom with their time means having no schedules, no obligations, and no structure, but when people lack discipline with their time, they often waste it on distractions, procrastination, and activities that don't truly fulfill them. At the end of the day, they may feel as though they accomplished nothing, leading to frustration and a sense of being trapped in an unproductive cycle. Those who impose discipline on themselves, planning their days, setting priorities, and maintaining focus, are the ones who actually gain the most freedom. By managing time effectively, they create space for the things that truly matter, rather than being at the mercy of distractions and urgent but unimportant tasks. Freedom in relationships also requires discipline. Many people assume that love and connection should be effortless, but meaningful relationships require patience, commitment, and effort. The discipline of active listening, resolving conflicts with care, and consistently showing appreciation for loved ones creates deeper and more fulfilling relationships. Those who lack discipline in their interactions may find themselves unable to maintain long-term connections, leading to loneliness and instability. True emotional freedom, the ability to form deep, trusting bonds with others, only comes when people are disciplined enough to nurture their relationships over time. Even creative freedom depends on discipline. Artists, writers, musicians, and innovators may appear to be free spirits, but their ability to create comes from years of disciplined practice. A musician cannot play freely unless they first master the technical skills of their instrument. A writer cannot express themselves fully unless they have disciplined themselves to practice their craft. True creativity flourishes when there's a strong foundation built through consistent effort and dedication. Ultimately, freedom is not the absence of discipline, it is the result of it. Those who embrace discipline in different areas of their lives gain the ability to make choices, pursue their goals, and live on their own terms. Without discipline, people are controlled by external forces, whether that be financial struggles, poor health, wasted time, failed relationships, or lack of skills. The paradox is that structure and self-control are not limitations on freedom. They are what make freedom possible. People often spend their lives trying to change the world around them, circumstances, other people, or external conditions, believing that if these things were different, they would finally be happy, successful, or at peace. But the paradox is that the only thing a person can truly change is themselves, and yet, by doing so, their entire world shifts. When people focus on altering their own thoughts, actions, and perspectives, they begin to influence everything around them in ways they never expected. Many frustrations in life come from the belief that external factors are responsible for personal struggles. People wish their partners would behave differently, that their jobs would be less stressful, or that the world would be more fair, but external change is unpredictable and often out of their control. A person cannot force a partner to be more loving, a boss to be more understanding, or society to function differently. However, what they can control is their response to these situations. By changing their attitude, expectations, and actions, they begin to experience life differently, and ironically, their relationships, careers, and circumstances often improve as a result. For example, in relationships, people frequently try to change others, pushing them to be more affectionate, more attentive, or more responsible, but no one changes simply because someone else demands it. Instead, when a person shifts their own behavior, communicating differently, setting better boundaries, or working on their own growth, the dynamic of the relationship naturally shifts. Sometimes the other person responds positively, improving the relationship. Other times, the change reveals incompatibilities that were always there, allowing for clarity and better decisions. In both cases, the person gains more control over their life, not by changing others, but by changing themselves. This idea applies to personal happiness as well. People often believe that they will be happy once they achieve certain things, a better job, more money, a different lifestyle. But external achievements do not guarantee happiness. Some people acquire everything they thought they wanted and still feel empty, while others in difficult circumstances find deep fulfillment. The key difference is mindset. When a person chooses to find gratitude, focus on what they can control, and create meaning in their own way, their experience of life changes. Happiness becomes less about external conditions and more about internal perspective. Even professional success is deeply tied to this paradox. Many believe that career growth depends on luck, market conditions, or being noticed by the right people. While external factors do play a role, the most successful individuals are those who focus on their own self-improvement. Instead of blaming a lack of opportunities, they develop new skills, refine their craft, and cultivate a strong work ethic. By becoming more valuable, they naturally attract better opportunities. The world does not change to accommodate them, they change, and in doing so, they create a new reality for themselves. This shift in perspective is also empowering because it removes the feeling of helplessness. When people believe that external factors are in control of their lives, they feel stuck, waiting for something to change. But when they realize that their own actions, thoughts, and habits shape their experience, they regain a sense of power. They no longer see themselves as victims of circumstance, but as active participants in creating their own reality. The ripple effect of self-change is profound. When a person becomes more patient, the people around them feel less defensive. When they become more disciplined, their work and personal lives improve. When they choose to be kind, they create a more positive environment. Change does not start from the outside in, but from the inside out. The paradox is that by working on oneself, rather than trying to force, the human mind is a strange and unpredictable thing. One of its greatest paradoxes is that the harder a person tries to forget something, the more that thought clings to their consciousness, whether it's an embarrassing moment, a painful memory, or even just a random song stuck in their head. The act of deliberately trying to push it away only strengthens its hold. This frustrating cycle has been studied in psychology and is often referred to as the white bear problem, a term coined from an experiment where participants were asked not to think about a white bear, only to find that they couldn't stop thinking about it. The reason this happens is tied to the way the brain processes thoughts. When someone tells themselves not to think about something, they are still actively engaging with that thought. To not think about an event requires first calling it to mind, which ironically reinforces its presence. The brain checks in periodically to see if the thought has been successfully suppressed, but in doing so, it brings it back to awareness. This creates a loop where the very effort to forget makes the memory stronger. This paradox is especially frustrating when it comes to painful or traumatic memories. A person who experiences heartbreak, loss, or failure may desperately want to erase the event from their mind, but their intense focus on forgetting only deepens the emotional impact. The more they try to push it away, the more it resurfaces, often at the most unexpected moments. Avoidance only gives the memory more power, making it feel even more inescapable. The same phenomenon applies to overthinking and anxiety. Someone who is nervous about an upcoming event might try to distract themselves, but the fear keeps returning because their brain keeps checking whether they have successfully let it go. This is why people often lie awake at night, replaying conversations, worrying about the future, or fixating on regrets. The attempt to force thoughts away only makes them louder, like trying to push a beach ball underwater. Eventually, it pops back up even more forcefully. Ironically, the best way to forget something is not to fight it, but to accept it. Mindfulness techniques suggest that instead of resisting unwanted thoughts, a person should acknowledge them without judgment and let them pass naturally. When a memory or thought is not treated as a threat, it loses its grip. Over time, instead of saying, "I must stop thinking about this," a person can say, "This thought is here, but it will fade." This shift in perspective allows the mind to process and release the thought without the struggle that keeps it alive. Distraction can sometimes work, but only if it's done in a way that fully engages the mind. Passive distractions like scrolling through social media or watching TV often fail because they leave enough mental space for the unwanted thought to creep back in. Active engagement, such as exercising, learning something new, or having a deep conversation, works better because it occupies the brain completely, leaving little room for intrusive thoughts. Time also plays a crucial role. Most thoughts and memories naturally fade if they are not constantly reinforced. The problem is that trying to forget something is a form of reinforcement. The mind attaches importance to whatever is repeatedly focused on, whether positively or negatively. The less emotional energy is given to a thought, the weaker it becomes over time. This paradox teaches an important lesson about control. The mind cannot always be forced to obey commands, and sometimes letting go happens only when one stops trying so hard. The best way to move on from something is not to erase it forcefully, but to accept that it's there and trust that, in time, it will lose its significance on its own. There are moments in life when the harder someone tries to achieve something, the more it slips out of reach. This paradox appears in different areas: falling asleep, being creative, finding happiness, or even maintaining relationships. The more forcefully a person pushes toward a goal, the more resistance they seem to encounter. Instead of making progress, they find themselves stuck, frustrated, and exhausted. The irony is that success in many aspects of life often comes when effort is balanced with ease, when control is loosened rather than tightened. One of the clearest examples of this paradox is sleep. Almost everyone has experienced a night where they desperately wanted to fall asleep but couldn't. The more they tried to force themselves to relax, the more awake and restless they became. Sleep, by its nature, is something that happens naturally when the mind and body are at ease. The act of trying introduces stress, which is the very thing that prevents rest. Letting go, allowing sleep to come when it will, is often the only solution. The same applies to relaxation in general. Someone who actively tries to relax often finds themselves tense because relaxation is not something that can be commanded, it has to be allowed. Creativity follows a similar pattern. Writers, artists, and musicians often struggle with creative blocks, where the more they pressure themselves to come up with ideas, the more their minds go blank. Inspiration seems to work in the opposite way, flourishing when the mind is free, playful, and open, rather than stressed and desperate. This is why ideas often appear when least expected, such as in the shower, while taking a walk, or during moments of daydreaming. The brain is still processing the problem in the background, but without the pressure, it is able to make unexpected connections. Creativity is not forced, it is invited. This paradox is also evident in social interactions and relationships. Someone who tries too hard to impress others often comes across as awkward or insincere. Whether in friendships, dating, or professional settings, desperation and excessive effort tend to push people away rather than draw them in. Confidence and authenticity, on the other hand, come from a place of ease. When a person is comfortable with themselves, they naturally attract others without needing to try so hard. A similar pattern exists in romantic relationships. The more someone chases love, the more elusive it becomes. When they relax, focus on their own growth, and let relationships develop naturally, meaningful connections are more likely to form. Happiness is another area where effort can backfire. People often believe that if they just work hard enough at being happy, they will achieve a lasting state of joy. But happiness is not a task to complete. It is a byproduct of meaningful experiences, relationships, and a balanced life. Someone who constantly measures their happiness, checking whether they feel happy enough, often ends up dissatisfied. The pursuit of happiness, when taken too seriously, creates anxiety about whether it has been achieved, making genuine contentment more difficult. Happiness arises naturally when a person is engaged in life rather than obsessively analyzing their emotional state. Even physical skills like sports or playing a musical instrument demonstrate this paradox. A golfer who tries too hard to hit the perfect shot often tightens up, leading to a worse performance. A musician who overthinks every note may play stiffly instead of fluidly. Athletes and performers are often told to trust their training and let their skills flow, rather than trying to consciously control every movement. Mastery is achieved not by forcing, but by allowing muscle memory and intuition to take over. This paradox teaches an important lesson about balance. Effort is necessary for success, but there is a point where too much effort becomes counterproductive. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means trusting the process, allowing things to unfold naturally, and understanding that some goals are best reached not by pushing harder, but by stepping back.